Hello, I'm Jose Quinones, and this is my partner Ivy Leal, and we are doing the impact of the overturn of Roe on Black women in the United States. So, starting off with the historical context of the overturning of Roe v. Wade for Black women in America. There is in this country much precedent for the complete denial of bodily autonomy for Black women in America. Module 3 provides us with the material to reflect on this historical precedent and how this precedent was fueled by the racially motivated dehumanization of Black women that therefore allowed for generations of Black women to be denied all bodily autonomy. Module 3, Chapters 4 and 5. Chapters 4 and 5 of our textbook provide us with the vivid descriptions of the total bodily control of Black women and how Black women were dehumanized and regularly sexually assaulted during a long period of slavery in this country. Upon being, quote, upon being sold, the commodification of Black women's bodies continued. They were used in the fields and in the homes of their enslavers, as well as in the industrial spaces and universities and city governments. They performed productive, reproductive, and scientific labor for enslavers and medical professionals throughout the 19th century. This quote describes the total lack of bodily autonomy Black women had to endure for generations in this country. It also demonstrates that the practice of exploiting Black women's bodies was regularly used in all industries, such as in the labor or medical professions. What these chapters do is that they demonstrate that Black women in the United States have had to experience generations of trauma because of the total exploitation of their bodies. And now in the 21st century, they're experiencing a new wave of denial of control of their bodies. It is clear that there is much historical context for this denial. I will now be turning it over to my partner, Ivy, to talk about Roe.
Okay, so the overturning of Roe v. Wade. On June 24th, 2022, the historic landmark of Roe v. Wade was overturned in a 6-3 decision. According to NPR.org, several states, including Mississippi, North Carolina, and Wisconsin, have decades-old abortion bans in their states. Now that Roe v. Wade is overturned, those states can reinforce old laws. How the overturn of Roe v. Wade directly impacts Black women. Kelly Davis, the executive director of the New Voices for Reproductive Justice, spoke on PBS News, describes how the overturn of Roe v. Wade will hit minorities the most. The overturn of Roe v. Wade has impacted states that have stricter laws, which is when the state will quickly take into effect their abortion bans. Davis explains that although surrounding states may still have access to abortion, not everyone has the means or is financially able to travel outside of their state in order to receive an abortion. Additionally, Davis describes how there is a worsening Black maternal morbidity and mortality rate or crisis when Roe v. Wade was still intact. Now that it is overturned, these rates of Black maternal morbidity and mortality crisis will skyrocket. Marginalized communities of color may not have access to sick leave, healthcare, childcare, the financial means to travel outside of their state, and on top of that, pay out of pocket for their abortion/doctor visits. According to PBS, currently more than 23 out of every 100,000 women die while giving birth. For Black women, the number is 55 in 100,000. This number could skyrocket for Black women because they may seek back alley abortions. Professor Michelle Goodwin states that these laws have a punitive aspect, such that if you have been raped or that if you somehow survived incest, that you too may no longer have an exception that would provide for the ability to terminate a pregnancy. Goodwin further explains that these laws have nothing to do with protecting, respecting the autonomy of women or girls. This demonstrates that Black women who are at a higher risk for sexual assault and violence now have to experience further trauma of being denied control of their own bodies, on top of having to live in fear of the new laws that shall almost disproportionately punish Black women. And I'm going to pass it back to Jose.
Thank you. So now we're moving back to the conclusion. Conclusion and gendered violence. In conclusion, there is clear historical context that must be understood when discussing the continued denial of bodily autonomy for Black women. And it all speaks to this point of gendered violence Black women have had to endure. Violence such as the dehumanization and exploitation of their bodies through the rape of Black women and the forced breeding for profit of slaveholders, and even the sexual assault of Black women for the industries of entertainment or science during the period of slavery. As Angela Davis states in her video on violence, Black people have faced incredible violence from the first time the first Black person was kidnapped from the shores of Africa. It is important that we educate ourselves and understand that the overturning of Roe v. Wade will result in further violence and trauma for the Black community and for Black women in particular. Here are our citations. Thank you for following along and have a great rest of your guys' day.